Alright, but before we start, Tom, I have a question for you. Do you know what this video is?
Fucking cursed!
So fucking cursed!
Oh my god, all of our files were fucking deleted because I don't know, it just,
So now we're recording this the Wednesday before it goes out.
Re-recording it.
High five!
I edited the audio and it was 25 minutes and all that's gone now, so that's fucking wonderful.
But
don't worry, the Kevin files are still here because fuck Kevin.
Fuck Kevin, he's our delinquent son. The delinquent trash son.
I fucking hate my life.
How much more anger do you need to get out about this fuckery?
I'm good, just get started so we can get this shit over with.
If you want, you can play Plank Inc. on the computer.
Good, I can kill fake people.
Kill people with the parasite. You're in Egypt. Have fun.
Good.
Okay.
Greetings all. Today we have a very special video for you all. We're going to take a look back at the quality of each volume of RWBY featuring a very special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce...
Hello, so!
Oh sure, just barge into my house without warning. It's not like I thought I was about to be murdered in a home invasion. Anyways, this is Rainy. The other day we were having a conversation where I said, I think the soundtrack makes people think RWBY is higher quality than it is. Yes, I used that accent, don't fucking judge me.
Which led me down the path of trying to grade the show on its own separate from the soundtrack on 3 merits. But I think for the sake of a video script that goes over 10 minutes for those sweet, sweet mid-roll ads, I can think of 5 categories to grade RWBY on that fall separate from the soundtrack. Plot, lore, character, staging, and focus. I will have a lot to say on some designs at times, but I think Tom and I hashing out different views for these 5 things per each volume would be good to get a good general feel for how RWBY is as a show.
And because we're American, we're going to be using the general American grading system, or at least the one in our state. However, most follow this curve. Anywhere below a 65% is a failing grade. The rest are on the screen because I don't feel like fucking listing them all. Anything higher than a 95% is an A. Also, as most schools do, you have to reach a 70% or higher or a perfect C to be considered good. Individual portions will receive a grade out of 10, and the overall volume will have a score out of 50, which may be modified by extenuating circumstances.
Yes, this is the grading system of America. Save us.
Now, let's tackle RWBY Volume 1. God, why did I have to write so fucking much? If you want to get technical, Volume 1 really began back in November of 2012, where the red trailer was aired at the end of the Red vs. Blue Season 10 finale. The 4 color trailers introducing each of the main 4 characters led up to the premiere of Volume 1 in July 2013. Comprised of 16 episodes, or chapters rather, this volume was... interesting. Since Rooster Teeth wasn't sure of how the show would perform, given how drastically different it was from RT's other shows, RWBY had a relatively low budget, and as such, most episodes were only 4 to 7 minutes in length, including the intro and credits. The longest an episode ever got was 15 minutes. I got into RWBY while I was a sophomore in high school. A friend told me about it, and I fell in love with it immediately. This was also right before Volume 2 premiered, so I was able to binge Volume 1 in its entirety rather than have to watch it week to week.
The first time that I saw this volume was actually after you had pushed me to watch it and Volume 3 had ended that year, so I had to binge all the way through and fall in love with some of these characters only to have them ripped away from me in the same short time span. You monster.
You agreed to this.
I did. Like a fool, I agreed.
Now, on to grading. Our first topic to tackle here is plot. Volume 1 honestly had very little plot. The first half is all about introducing the main characters and building to the team formations, and while it does rely on a lot of stale tropes and most characters aren't as interesting as they are later in the show, I still really enjoyed it. The second half is where my issues really take place. This should have been all about Team RWBY finding their initial dynamic, but RWBY and Wei's struggles are solved incredibly quickly. Not to mention Blake doesn't get any time to shine till her backstory appears out of the blue in the finale, and Yang has nothing. They don't even fight together in the last 2 episodes. That should have been the real proof they'd become a functioning unit. Don't even get me started on that goddamn Jean plot. Oh, that was a struggle to get through. While it was nice to see Pyrrha try to encourage Jean, Cardin and his lackeys are barely worth any attention. I have no issue with the show trying to develop the supporting cast, but the main characters should take priority. And clearly they didn't in Volume 1. Volume 1's plot suffers from a lack of direction and structure, and as such, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10.
It had a very simple, somewhat tropey plot. The show itself seemed to be playing a comedy the whole volume, but to me that seemed to clash with the tone that the trailers were setting up. The trailers had hyped a super serious action thing, while the show had cool action with comedy surrounding it and only kind of mild sense of danger. There wasn't anything bad, but also not much great. So kind of meh. I give plot an overall 5 out of 10.
I'd say our scores are pretty even, and I do agree that the tone is weird. I don't mind the comedy they sprinkled in, except that the show really doesn't know how to build up a proper threat. It's not like in Avatar: The Last Airbender where the comedy is naturally woven in, but there's still a legitimate threat to follow. Don't even get me started on the Grimm being cannon fodder.
I mean, what else would cannon fodder be? It seems they were setting up Grimm to be somewhat like different Grimm have different levels of difficulty to defeat, with the most common being those wolf things and the least common being like...
But yeah, our scores average out to 4, not terrible, just in the middle. A little less than perfectly center.
Who let the damn dragon in?
Are you profiling?
I'll forget it. Now we get into the lore. This will not only encompass the world building of the show, but also how well it's handled, meaning not well at all.
There's a day when our hearts will be broken, when a shadow will cast out the light, and
The way lore will be graded will allow an exposition-heavy volume to get a good grade as long as the exposition is woven into the story, or at least backed up in some way visually somewhere within the volume. However, post-Volume 3, the World of Remnant shorts do make the exposition take a hit on principle, because most exposition is repeating what we presumably learned there, and you don't release those as bonus content if you don't expect fans to watch it and draw upon that information later. And since you went first last time... I think Volume 1 was very clunky and lazy with its written exposition, and even where it can be handled well, it isn't. Some of the things that are told to us by a student in show would make more sense if they were being taught in the school. Some kids who took the entrance exam might not have their semblance, so at the very least explaining it might make sense. But if we go in with the assumption that it's ingrained in the culture of the world, then the characters don't need this exposition, definitely not from other students. That kind of monotonous bullshit makes more sense appearing as a lesson in a classroom. But when we're told, like, sometimes it is shown, it was a mess. A hot mess. 3 out of 10.
Oh boy, do I have a lot to say. First off, that speech Pyrrha gave to Jean on Aura, yeah, it's quotable and it sounds nice. Here's the problem though. It doesn't tell us anything. We have no idea how Aura practically works, how it's engaged, nor its impact on semblance. Not to mention the way Pyrrha talks about unlocking Aura. It sounds like everyone can do this. So why isn't everyone a huntsman? The show should have established that most people don't have enough aura to really matter, and even of those who do unlock it, not all discover their semblances. Next, the Faunus. The show tells us about Faunus prejudice, but never bothers showing it. Weiss turns her prejudice toward the Faunus around insanely quickly, and the only real bigotry we've seen is carded bullying Velvet, which barely counts. Not to mention the lore of the White Fang doesn't line up with the rest of the show. Apparently no one realizes Blake has the same last name as the White Fang's former leader and supposedly founder, even though there's no way he could be that old. And why are we shown a silhouette of a male Faunus when the White Fang is led by Sienna Khan? How does this organization work? The world building in general is just so lackluster. Things are never explained and established. Yes, exposition dumps are bad, but you also can't throw your audience into the deep end when they don't know how the fuck to swim. Especially when the pool is filled with fucking acid. We never learn about the different types of dust, how they work, or what they even are. Aura is barely explained. Even the general history of the world is lacking. If Jean's family fought in the Great War, then why don't more people know his last name? Why is Mistral's culture hinted at being Greek when it's clashed with Asian cultures down the line? What is going on? So yeah, world building is quite crap. 2 out of 10. Also, Ozpin doesn't even make the connection of Ruby to Summer. Ty never found it odd Ozpin let her in early. Worst dad ever.
Especially considering later on in the show's canon they established that death in an entrance exam is a possibility, so the chances would be even higher for someone of Ruby's age to get smeared across the forest floor in a bloody, unrecognizable splatter mark. You're right. Contradictions and too much telling, not enough showing, and even with all the telling, 2 out of 10. Kevin, what's the score so far?
Plot 4.5 out of 10. Lore 2 out of 10.
Thank you, Kevin. Next is character. We'll be taking a look at the cast, how they're introduced, what their motivations are, or aren't, and how much we want to murder them.
I have a lot to say about one specific character, but I'll wait my turn. Take the mic, Unicorn. Speak your truth!
So I shall. Here's the thing, most of the characters are very well established. Their designs make them very easy to remember and convey their personalities quite well. The issue comes in how they are written. Though I hated Jean's arc, God damn it, Bor! I don't really mind his character like a lot of people do. Likewise, Pierre, Ren, and Nora are fine considering they're just the supporting cast. Ruby's actually kind of interesting this volume as this socially anxious, introverted girl trying to become a huntress. The problem is they breeze right over her becoming a leader. We never really had a storyline of Team Ruby trying to work out their dynamics, so Ruby's character suffers from that. Weiss actually worked quite well in antagonizing Ruby, though their turnaround was much too fast to really cement a change. There's no catalyst for Weiss' development. Not to mention, Weiss never interacts with Yang, and her turnaround with Blake happened so quickly, it legit gave me whiplash. Yang is established very well, but they don't take her character anywhere interesting. She's basically just the loud, obnoxious teen mom and not much else. And Blake. Oh, Blake. Her character keeps changing. Sometimes she's quiet, cool, and collected, sometimes she wants to be left alone, and other times she's totally into Ruby's shenanigans. And her trusting son with her past, when she doesn't even tell her teammates, let alone her partner, what is this? Why are you aiding this scum?
Why are you aiding this scum?
If they'd made her hot and cold attitude a legit plot point to explore, all of this could be forgiven, but it's not, so yeah, Blake is the worst. But oh my god, Roman is legit the best thing to come out of Volume 1. He's witty, snarky, and an actual legitimate threat, for all 2 episodes he's in. Ironic that the villain is the most likable character. Cinder works as a mysterious threat, so I'll let her pass. Though the professors, and especially Ozpin, are meh. Since we skip over a lot of potential classroom moments, we don't get to see the professors shine much. Not to mention, Ozpin comes across less as this mysterious figure who knows much more about the world than even the audience, and more of a negligent, oblivious headmaster who doesn't know shit about running a school, especially considering all the people who managed to sneak right the fuck in. Also, fuck Team Cardinal. Fuck them. I give Volume 1 a 6 out of 10 on character.
Honestly, I feel I might be a bit harsher. The volume itself is trying to set itself up to have this large, vibrant crayon box of characters, all different colors.
God damn it, Bor!
What we got delivered, however, is a brown money mess with a few standouts. They introduced too much too fast and didn't want to allow for the possibility of character growth spanning multiple volumes, something that actually still seems to be a problem. The main cast of characters is generally likable. Weiss isn't. Well, wasn't for me. She had 1 episode of growth and the issues are never brought up again, much like the Faunus issue never being properly addressed in the show. Just having them say that people of Remnant are prejudiced against them, we never see the full arc of what Weiss could have had. I know she's your daughter, but bear with me. What kind of struggles would someone who grew up homophobic have when their best friend comes out as gay? What sort of institutionalized assumptions will they have to break down to truly accept their friend? What sort of stereotypes and slurs might they accidentally have slip into their speech afterwards? It wouldn't just be an, oh, well, I guess I'll just accept you and never have any struggles against my upbringing ever again. Nope, all sunshine and rainbows from here, my good friend. She has the same one-note, very easy character arc when accepting Ruby as the team leader instead of her when, if we're honest, yeah, it should have been her, as she was the most skilled, competent fighter. Even-headed, able to use her semblance very easily, having a complex weapon but never having it interrupt the smooth flow of her fighting style. But Ruby is the leader because protagonist. And Blake exists, writers! I know they have problems with serious characters, but her motivations, personality, and level of openness changes episode to episode. She could have just been stoic and closed off until someone broke through, like Yang in Volume 2. We could have had more show don't tell that she has more connections to the White Fang than just knowing about them. Keeping her consistent seemed impossible for writers. She should have just had a big fat label on her forehead saying, "Hello, I'm a plot device." And the bullies, I know they're minor characters, but they are so stuck and boring, nothing that they do seems believable. They could have been so easy to make the way you show true faunish prejudice, but no. They pull Velvet's ear and talk shit a couple times. Yeah, sure, I really feel the visceral racial hate that the faunists have to go through. Showing it like that is despicable. Since that is the only prejudice you show us every day, you make it seem like the faunists are just bullied, not truly discriminated against. Yes, it is a gradient from bullying to worse, but you have to show some of it. Inconsistencies of characters' development being handled poorly, if at all, and not incorporating world reasons into your character motivations? Honestly, a 4 out of 10.
Oh, so you basically felt the same way as me, except much more intensely and scarily. I don't think I'd go as far to call Blake a plot device, but I will agree that her motivations, personality, and so on are inconsistent. And the problem with that inconsistency is not innate. The problem is that it wasn't woven into her character intentionally. Instead, it's just the writer stumbling, unsure of how to write her in the first goddamn place.
Shall we average the scores then?
Ugh, math. Kevin, you do it.
Not my problem, you can't do basic ass math.
What was that, young man?
5 out of 10 average.
Next up is staging.
I couldn't take it, couldn't stand another minute. Couldn't bear another day without you in it. All of the joy that...
Since I did not make these categories and don't want to fuck up the script this early on, Rainy, how about you go first?
You got it! Okay, staging is going to be how we judge the looks of the show. This is encompassing small aspects into one big, staged blob. Character design, how it makes sense for the characters, think like costuming, lighting and the colors of the environment with the characters in contrast. The fight scenes are here, and whether or not they are timed well and flow well will go into this. Also set design, so how does the production look and feel to watch?
In that case, I have mostly praise for Volume 1. The character designs are incredibly memorable and convey the characters' personalities very well, and the colors associated with each character help them stand out to the audience. I'm not as big a fan of the environment design, though. They toned down the colors of Vale in Volume 2, which helps keep the eyes focused on the main characters. Volume 1 Vale, however, looks very busy. Beacon's interiors, likewise, are quite generic and don't really stand out. I do love the aesthetic of Foreverfall, though. Now, the fight scenes are spectacular, there's no debating that. Each color trailer fight, along with the fights in chapters 1, 8, and 16, showcase Monty's talents perfectly. My main gripe is that the fights aren't all that prevalent in the rest of the episodes, but given Volume 1 had the budget of a toothpick, oh well. Even the odd character animations and shadow people I'm willing to forgive, again given the production limitations, as well as the fact that I think the shadow people fit well with the overall aesthetic for the show. Not to mention, it's blessed us with plenty of memes, and even a Ruby Chibi skit. Huzzah. Overall, I'd give staging a 7 out of 10.
The shadow people were rather fun. I enjoyed them for however long they lasted, and I think that they were an asset to the show and did take a lot of strain off the creators for having to think of a way to make the varied people of Vale into bright and vibrant individual characters with their shared toothpick. The character designs at times are confused, but generally they're okay. Some of the designs don't seem to reflect the way that the characters are supposed to dress for the climate they're from. I mean, I want to give Weiss leggings. Blake is supposed to be from a tropical area and the daughter of an Indian lore-based parents, and they have an Italian last name. She's dressed in glorified and confusing lingerie, and she's pale as paper. They could have thought that through a bit better. Note, I do get that Gira and Kali didn't exist yet, however, that is something rather bizarre to leave out of the character-making process. You don't have to go in depth, just have an idea of what it is you're supposed to be doing and where you're taking that character. Oh, wait. They weren't thinking with that with Blake. They didn't give her a character. I liked the sets. I thought overall they were pretty. I liked how vibrant the world was, though the Volume 2 tone down wasn't bad. I liked the generic feel of the school because the look of the nice school makes you think of your standard slice of life school anime with the fantasy spin. The characters stand out well, the shadow people actually do help that, and now you're playing Find the Main Character in easy mode. It's really convenient. The fight scenes are incredible, and one of the best things in the show. The fights being kept rare but interesting made it good. Overall, I would say the volume gets an 8. Yeah, the character designs annoy me, but that's nitpicking. Kevin! Average!
I am not your slave.
But you are my trash son. Now do math.
7.5 out of 10.
Last but not least, focus. I think that Volume 1 had decent focus. The volume put the focus on the main character and her core group and even made it establish their characters, i.e. Weiss and Ruby and the fun one. Who's that depressed shadow? Never heard of her! Since this isn't about character development though, I actually think it earns a 7 or 8 for focus. What do you think?
The first half of Volume 1 did well on focusing on the establishment of the core teams, those being Ruby and Juniper. Afterwards, there really isn't an overarching focus to speak of. 2 episodes are dedicated to a rush story of Ruby and Weiss working out their dynamic, 4 are dedicated to Jean's bullshit, and the last 2 try to rush in Blake's backstory, along with the threat of the White Fang into the forefront for Volume 2. Again, Volume 1's focus is strong in the first half, but in the second half, it falls the fuck apart. There's no sense of build-up towards the end. No plots threading together nicely into the finale. Things just kinda randomly happen one thing after the other. I'm gonna give Volume 1 a 5 out of 10 on focus. 5 for the first half, 0 for the second. Kevin, math!
I don't care either way. Average is 6.5. A fucking course, y'all made it a decimal. Plot 4.5. Lore 2. Characters 5. Staging 7.5. Focus 6.5. Total 25.5 out of 50. Percentage 51%. Grade F. Really?
Yeah, that's a lot lower than I thought it would be. But I remember enjoying Volume 1. Even if it was critically bad, it doesn't mean that it wasn't fun or bad or that we didn't want to see the show improve. And I'm glad it did. If the show didn't go on, we never would have gotten you, Kevin. Are we at 10 minutes yet?
I don't know, I haven't fucking edited yet. Actually, yeah, I did edit it last time. It was 25 minutes, and then the fucking computer deleted all the files! Calm down. Calm down.
murder your computer after we record this.
Anyways, I agree. Every time I go back to rewatch Volume 1, I really enjoy it. It's always better than I remember it being. Still, it's kind of a mess, and we can't turn a blind eye to that. I am happy to see that the show has improved since then, though. Do we have any other points we'd like to make?
Now that you mention it...
No. Y'all have wasted everyone's time enough. Mainly mine. Now, if you excuse me, I have a city to destroy.
I knew I should have gotten dragon insurance. On that note, I'm the Unicorn of War.
I'm RainyDayz.
And this has been a shit show.
Get out of my house!
Yeah!
Both of you!
Huh?
I am calling the police!
We're in a fantasy world. There are police.
I don't care! The script ends now! Oh, by the way, thanks, patrons.
Dry your eyes now, baby. Broken wings won't hold you down. You'll take flight soon, baby. You'll be lifted up, and you'll be
Do we have any other points we'd like to make?
You mention it.
No! No! You can save it for Volume 2's prelude or some shit.